All right, it is 10 a.m. and welcome to the Stellar Solar Electric Bill Relief webinar. Before we get started, we're just going to do a quick background on the company and a speaker introduction. Um, Stellar is San Diego's oldest solar company. We've been in business since 1998. We've been voted San Diego's best solar company in the UT Readers Poll 7 of the last 9 years. We're a SunPower master dealer. We have a large portfolio of commercial clients, including US Foods, Cedars-Sinai Hospital, the Salk Institute in San Diego, and more. We've got 300 plus 5-star reviews on Yelp and other social review sites. A quick introduction on our speakers here. I'll start with Michael Powers. Michael's a former marketing manager at Home Depot Supply and helped launch the National Solar Program for the Home Depot. Since 1999, he's been a board member of the Global Energy Network Institute, which is GENI, and he's spoken on renewable energy at Stanford University, the World Economic Forum in London, and last year was invited to speak about the global energy internet at GuideCo's International Conference in Beijing. He trained in PV solar sales and installation at AstroPower, now GE Solar, before becoming a founding partner at SunPower by Stellar Solar. Brian Grems is going to follow Michael, and he's an experienced electrical engineer and licensed electrician. He's a Purdue graduate who studied at one of the world's top PV research labs at the University of New South Wales in Australia, and began his career designing solar cells in a research and development laboratory, then later moved into the field, specialized in systems design and installation. Brian is also a founding partner at SunPower by Stellar Solar. And with that, I'm going to lead it off with Michael Powers. Welcome, Michael.
Yeah, thank you, David, and welcome to all the folks who are joining us this morning, and thank you for giving us your time, and I hope that it'll be productive and useful for you. You know, we've been doing this now for over 20 years, which seems like a lifetime. I guess it kind of is in the solar business, but I feel like we're going full circle because when we first started the program at Home Depot, one of the most important things we needed to be able to do is in about 3 to 5 minutes explain to customers at the stores why solar made sense and why it was a good value and how they would get a return on their investment. And it seems like that's still the thing that we're talking about today. We can get into the technical side, and Brian will explain a little bit more about what's the latest, greatest in our industry. But this morning, we really wanted to talk about how does this actually put money in your pocket? And because it's an investment for sure. And at this time where money is really tight, people are concerned about, is this a good time to make an investment? And we're here to tell you this morning why it is. Because you're going to take that electric bill that you're getting every month, especially now that people are spending more time in their homes, and figure out how to lower that electric bill and maybe even make it go away completely, which would be a positive thing, right? So I thought I would use my home just as an example. I've had solar on my house for a little while now. It's a pretty average house, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, about 1,500, 1,600 square feet with air conditioning. We live in Allied Gardens, so we've got an electric bill in the summertime. We have air conditioning, of course. And my total electricity usage over the course of the year is about 8,000 kilowatt hours per year. Most people don't think about what that number is, but if you look on your electric bill every month, it tells you not only how much money you owe them, but how many kilowatt hours you've used. And so just like you go to the gas station and fill up 10 gallons, when you buy electricity, you're buying a commodity. And the question is, what does that cost when you buy that electricity? Here's the solar system that we have on my house. It's on top of the garage. It's pretty hard to see from the front. There's 16 SunPower panels. We are a master dealer for SunPower. They're the highest efficient, highest rated solar panels that you can get. 320 watts a piece. And it produces at peak 5,000 watts. We say it's a 5.12 kilowatt system. Just like motors are rated in horsepower, solar is rated in kilowatts. And so different houses need different sizes depending on how much power you use. We put that in 2017, and I can see on my phone and on my computer this little graph at the bottom with the bar graphs. You can see month by month, January, February, March, and so on, exactly how many kilowatt hours I'm producing over the course of the year. And in last year, 2019, my system produced 7,883 kilowatt hours, let's just say 8,000 kilowatt hours per year, which is what my house uses. And so as long as my production with the solar panels equals how much I'm using, my electric bill is basically a wash. Instead of buying those kilowatt hours from SDG&E, I'm producing them myself with the solar. That means that there's a small charge just to stay connected, and there's some things called non-bypassable charges that help the grid to keep going. But for all intents and purposes, my electric bill was wiped out because I was able to produce 100% of what I was using over the course of the year. Now everybody's house is a little bit different. That's why we have solar consultants that come out and talk to you. Well, they don't come out right now. They talk to you on the phone, do virtual consultations to find out what your actual energy needs are, so we can determine how many panels would it take to do that. So let's look at the numbers, the money. Right now, SDG&E, if you just look at generally over the course of a day, a kilowatt hour costs about 30 cents a kilowatt hour. So in a year, 8,000 kilowatt hours times 30 cents is $2,400. I know it seems pretty basic, but I just wanted everyone to know this is not tricky. There's nothing scientific about this in the sense of, it's not complicated. It's not rocket science. It's really just dollars and cents. The cost of a solar system, prorated over the lifetime of the solar system, produces the electricity at about 8 cents a kilowatt hour. And that means that the same amount of electricity over the course of the year can either cost $2,400 from SDG&E, or it can cost me $640 by producing it myself. So, clearly just doing the math, in 1 year, we can save almost $1,800 by producing solar electricity myself instead of buying it from SDG&E. That's in 1 year. Over the course of a lifetime, these have 25-year warranties, so the solar panels are going to produce electricity maybe more than 25 years, but they're guaranteed to work for 25 years. The number just explodes. SDG&E is going to cost $60,000 over a 25-year period while you're in your house. That same electricity produced by solar is about $16,000. So over the lifetime of a system, you're saving, $44,000, and that's assuming that SDG&E rates don't change. Of course, we know that electricity prices always do increase. So if we go to the next slide. Generally, it's more than 3% a year, but let's just say that it goes up on average 3% a year. That means that you're out of pocket for electricity over 25 years is almost $90,000. Meanwhile, the solar is what it is. Solar tends to get a little less expensive every year, $16,000. So really, it's over $70,000 that you can save by producing the solar electricity yourself instead of buying it from the utility company. And there's one other feature here, is that if I were to sell my house in 5 or 10 years, I'm selling a house now that has no electric bill. So I generally am going to get more for an offer. I'm going to get a higher price for my house. So the money that I've invested in solar is actually an investment in my house. Whereas when I pay the utility company, I am just sending electricity out the door, sending cash out the door. It's just like paying apartment rent versus making a house payment. So the return on investment is so much better. There's one little caveat to this, is that with solar, the production occurs when the sun goes up and down during the day. So we can't turn the electricity up and down the way you could with, let's say, a generator. And in our electricity usage is a little different. In the morning, we tend to use a lot of electricity when we first get up in the morning. Then, assuming people go to work during the day, which eventually we hope we will, the electricity goes down again, and then it peaks again when we come home from work between 4 and 9 p.m. And that's not how the electricity is produced with solar. In the solar, the peak production is in the middle of the day. So what do we do about that? Because we're not producing and using it at exactly the same time. Well, there's a feature called, and by the way, in the summertime, we produce more power because the days are twice as long in the summer. In the winter, the days are short, so we don't produce as much electricity in the summer. So there's a daily difference, and there's a seasonal difference also. So how we fix that is this thing called net metering, which started really almost 20 years ago now. And instead of storing the electricity at your house, you sell that back to the power company at the same retail price that you're buying it at. And as long as you're selling and buying it at the same time, you don't get so much store the electricity as you store money. You get a credit on your bill. And most of our customers right now are only paying their electricity bill once a year. And at the end of the year, whenever you put your solar on, 1 year later, you pay the difference between how much you produce and how much you use. So until recently, as long as you could produce and use the same amount of power, then your electric bill was wiped out. Brian's going to talk in a little bit about what the effect of this new rate base is. You probably have heard SDG&E is billing their electricity now, not just on how much you use, but on when you're using it. And so there's a little bit of a difference now. Your charges are based on what time of the day you're using the electricity versus how much you're using over the course of a month and over a year, which is why batteries are now starting to make a little more sense than they did in order to make your electric bill go down and basically wipe it out. So just to kind of recap here, we're going to talk about batteries in a second, but the value of solar, just generally speaking, in the average home can save about $1,800 a year or $70,000 over your lifetime. Any money invested in solar adds value to your house. When you spend money with the utility, it only goes to the utility. There's no return on your investment. And we do have a number of special offers right now because of the business environment that we're in. We're making safe virtual sales consultations so we don't have to come out to your house. We can do the installation the same way, consulting with you and practicing all the safe practices that we are now. We're considered an essential service, an essential industry, because we are doing construction, and so that's an important thing. You don't need to make any money down, to pay any money down. We have financing available, and we, Stellar Solar, will make your payments to that solar loan for up to 6 months so that you don't have to have any money come out of pocket. And right now, when you're spending a lot of time at home and the days are warm, we're going to have the air conditioning coming up pretty quick. Those big electric bills are on the horizon. This would be a great time to put the solar on your house to make sure that you are going to have more money in your pocket. And now I'd like Brian to talk about batteries. And so solar plus batteries, why is that a great combination? We can do both, we can do either. And he'll be able to tell you why that makes more sense.
Thanks, Michael. And I just want to remind attendees, if you have questions, just type them in and we'll be addressing those at the end. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Brian Grems.
All right. Well, thank you, Michael. Yeah, when Michael and I first started in this business about 20 years ago, hard to believe we've been working together for that long, but it's true, we have. But one of the things we used to talk about back then when we gave these seminars is how the solar production kind of coincided with the peak demand from the utility companies. So it was a great match that you could put solar on your house, and it really helped to offset the demand from the utility company right in the middle of the day when they had their highest demand for electricity. And that's kind of changed. So what we see now is that, in California, we've put so much solar electricity on the grid that we've kind of wiped out that demand in the middle of the day for the utility companies. And so they are actually having to really curtail their production in the late morning and then ramp it back up in the afternoon to kind of offset this solar generation that's being put onto the grid. And it might seem like a seamless thing, but it's actually a little bit of an issue for the utility companies, because you can't just turn a power plant on and off at will. It takes a few hours to ramp these things up and down. And so the utilities are actually struggling to turn their power plants up and meet that peak demand, as the solar is winding down in the afternoon, and then the demand for electricity is ramping up in the evening. So what they've done is they've implemented these things you may have heard of called time of use rates. Basically, they're trying to sort of de-incentivize you to use electricity in the evening. They might make it more expensive. So the electricity in the evening from 4 to 9 p.m. is quite a bit more expensive than electricity is in the middle of the day. So what this allows you to do with the battery is to store your solar generation that you produce in the middle of the day when maybe you're not using it and you're just sending it back to the grid. You can now store it on site at your house and use it when you need it. So when that most expensive electricity is, you're using that from 4 to 9 p.m., you're now going to use your own solar electricity that you've stored up in the middle of the day and use that to offset that most expensive electricity in the evening by discharging your battery in the evening to meet your electricity demand later in the night when the electricity is most expensive. And one little benefit that goes along with that, not only are we offsetting that most expensive electricity from 4 to 9 p.m., but these batteries also allow you to have backup power. So in the event of a blackout, you'll still have power. And there's a few different ways we do this. Sometimes we're just backing up, just essential things in the house, like your refrigerator and your internet and a few lights. And make sure you can just, still get by. And then honestly, more often than not, we're backing up pretty much the whole house. Oftentimes we are backing up the entire house. And the transition with this Tesla Powerwall, when the blackout happens, is seamless. Really, it's you may not even know that the power has gone out. You may not even have to reset your clocks or anything when the utility power does come back on. You might be the only house on the block that can ride out this blackout and never even know that there was a blackout. So nice little benefit. I think that when the batteries first started coming around a few years ago, I think they were mostly put in place to offset that most expensive electricity. But what we're finding is most people are really interested in the backup power that they can get, especially during wildfire season. And you've probably heard of, if you haven't experienced yourself, some of the planned power outages that the utilities are putting in place to prevent the wildfires from sparking. And then the third benefit really you get from the batteries is that, like we said, the time of use rates that SDG&E has put into place in the last few years, it's a new thing, right? They've changed, they can go back to the state and change their electricity rate structure every 3 years. So this time of use rate that they've done is fairly new. And if you have a battery system and you can control when you use the electricity that you generate, it doesn't really matter if the utility company changes their rate structure again. You're in control. You generate your own electricity and you use it when you want to use it. And it doesn't really matter if the utility goes back and changes the rate structure again. If they make the most expensive electricity at, from midnight to 6 in the morning, which they won't, but if they did, you'd be fine. Even though it's in the middle of the night, your solar is not producing, you store that electricity up in the middle of the day, you use it when you need it, and you can use it to offset the most expensive electricity that you're using. So one more slide, couple more slides actually, if you can go to the next one. So there's a couple of incentives available. So we have from the federal government, there is we call the ITC, that's the investment tax credit. This has been around for a long time now, but it is set to expire in a couple of years. So if you get your solar and batteries installed, it counts for both solar and batteries, you can get 26% in the form of a tax credit off of the price of your batteries. So you actually realize it when you do your taxes. And then, so that 26% is good until the end of this year. In 2021, that number drops down to 22%. And after 2021, that tax credit goes away completely. So the time to do it is now, really. Get that 26%. If you can't get the 26%, at least get in on the 22%, because after that, it's gone. And then there is also a state rebate that's available for batteries at the moment. It depends a little bit about if, where you live. People that are in high risk fire zones qualify for a little bit more of the state rebate. And I think we have a slide on that one too. If you go one more, no. So there we go. So there is a state rebate. It's called the Self-Generation Incentive Program. And that covers, for the average person, that covers just a little over $2,000 for the price of one Tesla Powerwall. Like I said, if you live in a high fire risk zone, it is significantly more. So take advantage of it. Now's the time. And I think at this time, we'll open up the room to questions.
Great, thanks, Brian. Let me just get out of this presentation and see if we've got any questions here. Anyone in the audience have any questions they want to type in? Okay, well, if you are interested in a quote, you can follow up with the email that you got. You can reply to that, or you can go into our on our website. There's a form there that you can fill out, or you can call us directly. We do have a great promotion going right now that Michael had talked about, where there's no money down, and we're going to make your solar loan payment for up to 6 months. And if we don't have any questions, we're going to leave it at that. And I appreciate everybody attending this morning. And thanks, Brian and Michael, for your expertise as always. And with that, we're going to end the webinar. Thanks again for attending.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.